It's time, my friends. Another episode of Model Railroad Talk. In this episode, we start out, well, we have Benjamin back with us. He's been on several times, and he is going to talk about how he went from the Perry Central to the Baxter Springs to the KCS Baxter Springs Lawton branch and the ups and downs on that. And we talk about if you are not 100% happy with your railroad, go ahead and make changes, or should you? And then we have just general chit chats. Stick around because we're going to get this show on the tracks. Welcome to this episode number 97. We have He's a special guest, but he's been on several times. And like all my guests, they're all special. We have Benjamin back with us. But before we jump to having Benjamin on here, um, I guess it's this episode, as we said in our intro, is is it okay to start over? And Benjamin, that's why I'm bringing him into this episode, is to, I guess, show you it's not ever too late or never too early to, if you come up with a better plan or see something or just not happy with the way your model railroad is going, it's okay to stop and redo the entire railroad or bits and pieces or whatever. Even if you've just recently started, think about it this way. If you've laid track down and you've operated some trains and you like it, but you got that feeling like, I think I could do a little better. Don't ever get yourself into I guess don't let yourself get into the ideas that, well, I've already done this, I don't want to redo it. Because in the end, you want your railroad to be what you like, what you're gonna be happy with, at least for a decent amount of time, because let's face it, we wanna enjoy our hobby, and in the end, we wanna be able to run trains on a miniature world, right? So, if you build something and you get that feeling like, I wish I would've put a spur in here, or maybe not put that spur in, or, added to it or changed it, do it now. It's easier to do it at the beginning stages. Then the further along you go, the more time, money, effort, all that good stuff that you've put in up to that point, whether it be scenery and track. I want to say it's wasted, not all of it, because a lot of times you can save track, and depending on how it's secured down. Roadbed, most of the time you can't, unless you're doing the easy track where it's already got it. But the thing is it's just because you might be starting out on your model railroad, and you may feel like, well, I've gotten this far with the track, but I don't want to change anything, you know, don't, but I'm not quite happy, and just stop. There's nothing wrong with, you know, um, just stopping, taking a step back, figuring out, okay, what's it gonna take to put in this spur or take one out or add track, or maybe you found out once you start building it, "Oh, I got a little extra room." Well, Benjamin's gonna be able to, when we get with him on this episode, he'll be able to explain to you, "Hey, it's easy to add to your railroad if you find out you have a little bit more space." I know it can be scary, and sometimes that's what we need to greatly improve our modeling, you know? It's sometimes we need to just take that step, take those chances, and if you're sitting there, you're happy with your railroad, but you're not, let's say you're like 95 or 98% happy, but you wish you had just done that little thing, just do it. It's in the end, you're gonna be happy. Um, you're not gonna get to the point where you have it all scenic and you're running trains, and you don't wanna get to the end, if you will, and have somebody come over and you're explaining to them, "Look, yes, this is great. I love it, but I wish I would have done this or added this." Just do it. There's nothing wrong with that. And Benjamin here is going to, I guarantee you, back me up on this, and he's going to tell you his story. And just like I promised, guess what? Benjamin is with us. I told you here a few seconds ago he was going to be on here, and now magically he's here. Benjamin, thanks for coming back onto the show and welcome again.
It's always glad to be back, Gary. Always.
It's always great to have you on here. You've always got some interesting stuff going on with your N scale. Uh, KCS, well, Baxter Spring Lawton branch now.
Hmm.
But before we jump to that, if this happens to be a viewer or viewers, listeners, first episode, would you mind giving us a brief description of what the original layout was that you actually were on episode? Well, you've been on several episodes, but your original episode you were on this podcast was episode 15, and you were talking about the KCS Baxter Springs branch or division. Well, I don't, but fill us in. Give us a brief description of what that was.
Okay, yeah. So the very first layout that I did when I first came on was the Perry Central Railroad, which was a freelance railroad that just did a switching layout. Was a 1 foot by, gosh, what was it? 4 foot by 4 foot with a foot depth on it, and that's one thing that did it on there. So after that, it became the KCS branch. And from there on, we actually did the shelf style still as well. Then after that, I went to what we have now, which is the modular section layout. Um, but I'll go back in more depth with that if we need to.
Sure. And that's my mistake. Reason why I was thinking KCS was your original because your Perry Central, if I remember correctly, your logo and stuff like that was kind of it was still very similar to KCS as far as the logo and stuff, right?
Correct, yeah. So I interpreted using the KCS logo by basically making the Perry Central part of the KCS lines.
Sure.
Kind of like how
So,
the Louisiana and Arkansas was part of the KCS lines, which was called the part of the Southern Bell lines.
oh, okay. So you were doing kind of what I was originally kind of doing with Iowa Eastern Railroad, and where it was originally going to be part of the KC or CPKC. And then, of course, talking to you, we'll get into that here after a while, but I kind of changed things. I don't know if it's good or bad, but we've been influencing each other back and forth here a little bit.
Yes, we have, especially with the a lot of the bridge scenes I've been working on, stuff like that. It's really inspired you to get some of your stuff done, as from what I've been
Yep.
watching and stuff. So
Yep. All right. So so you started out like you said a little short, not short, but smaller shelf style layout, and then you went to what I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, 2 foot by 4 foot, basically loop a track that was the KCS Baxter Springs division,
correct.
right? And then now you're on the KCS Baxter Springs Lawton division, and I guess let's go back because in the beginning, this episode's about um, if you get to a certain point in your railroad and you realize, I love what I've done, but there's just something that's just not right, or you're not 100% happy. You might be 98, 99% happy, but there's just that one little 1%.
Yeah.
Um, yes, let, what were some of the factors in you deciding to take uh, the KCS Baxter Springs and go to what you're doing now?
Okay, yeah. So when I did the original Baxter Springs, it was a shelf layout still in the concept,
Mhm.
doing the research and everything else, going through rabbit holes. Not a whole lot was given for information. The layout then became a 2 foot by 4 foot, like you had mentioned, oval circle track. Supposed to have internet interchange connections with the backdrop in the back with staging, so that way I
Mhm.
can operate as operations. Plus, also if I want a continuous run, I could do continuous run.
Sure.
So with the current layout now, Grant, I'll jump into it a little bit.
That's right.
The layout is actually in modular sections, and the downfall, or not the downfall, but I should say the plus side of this is I can actually tear down section by section and work on a little bit at a time.
Mhm.
The layout, however, was never put into consideration for the 2 foot by 4 foot layout, was never put in with foam or anything like that to actually allow for a connection for modular sections.
Sure.
So my hardest part of doing this, and this is where we'll jump into, tearing the layout down.
Right.
That was my downfall that I had a hard time jumping into because I already put my time, effort with,
Mhm.
if anybody has seen my YouTube channel, the N-Scale KCS Baxter Springs Lots and Branch, I posted videos of the trains running around in circles on that old layout.
Right. Yep, I've seen those, yeah. And if anybody's interested, after this episode, you're done listening to this episode, of course. If you go to our website, www, actually newly renovated website, www.modelrailroadtalk.com. On the homepage, on the right side, you scroll down, you'll see a link to his YouTube channel. And if you click at the top, you'll see a link to a page on mine for my railroad, and you'll see one for Benjamin. So if you want some, if you're interested and you kind of want to follow along, you can head over to the website. But anyways, I guess okay. Now saying that because I said it in our intro about it can be scary to tear down, and because you've put so much work and effort into what you've done up to that point. Um, I guess what were some of the factors, or let me. I guess what was wrong question. What was the process like in the teardown of the old railroad? I guess kind of walk us through a little bit of, in case somebody listening is maybe at that stage when they're like, I don't know if I should do this or not. I guess tell us what you went through.
So what I went through is, Grant, when we had discussed that I had started the two modules, which is the Cow Creek Bridge and the interchange, I had started already, but I had already put foam and all that on there.
Mhm.
When I went through more research in December, which I'll jump back a little bit, I found more information, got some more prototype pictures, started going in the more prototype realm to almost create it, but use some modeler's license
Mhm.
to interpret some of the stuff that actually was there. Now, with the layout itself directly, when I started tearing down, it hit me because I had spent the time and effort and money. Money was the big factor that hit me because I had spent so much to get it to where it was at.
Right.
But when I started tearing down, I'm like, okay, I need to realize, okay, I need to attach it to the rest of whatever I'm going to build. In order to do that, though, I have to tear down what's already there. And it's kind of scary because it's like the moment you start peeling off your scenery, your ballast, your track, your roadbed, it starts, you start realizing all the money that you just went into,
Mhm.
but you have to have a goal for a newer layout that should be able to work well with what you want. It doesn't hurt to start over. It really doesn't. Even though that the worst part is the money and time and effort spent into it.
Right. Well, and I'm sure, yeah, I get the scenery, and let's face it, most time, with the exception maybe trees and obviously structures, there's probably not much scenery that you're going to be able to um, keep. But you can, if you, depending on how your tracks laid down and stuff like that, you can a lot of times your track, your switches, turnouts, what have you, stuff like that, you can a lot of times salvage. So that kind of softens the blow a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't know if I've shown you pictures too, but throughout the process, I actually was able to save a lot of my flex track and a few of my switches to save the money because switches do cost a lot.
Oh yeah.
And with the flex track and stuff, it was easier to salvage as much as I can. So I went ahead, I took an old toothbrush, some water, just kind of scrubbed off all the old ballast, but salvaged what I could to reuse in the next process. So it was easier than spending a whole lot for the next round.
Right. And that's what's nice about Flex Track is, it comes in 3-foot sections, and okay, maybe you messed up on a foot section, but it's not like snap, or not snap track. I guess, yeah, it's called
Yeah,
snap
nap
track.
track.
You mess up one piece, well, there's, probably nowadays 50 cents at least, whereas you still have a decent piece of track that you can use for mainline or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I used reused a lot of it. I have Just one turnout I was able to salvage because a lot of them in the process trying to bring them up, I forgot I left spikes in the rail ties.
Yep.
And a lot of that problem right there is you don't want to leave ties if you're going to permanently keep it down with ballast. It's better to glue your track down to the roadbed so that way you're not having to worry about it with using push pins to hold them down, which is what I did to keep it
Mhm.
down.
Right, right. Oh, I understand that. So I guess sticking with what was the process like of tearing down. I know you kind of mentioned this. You had the idea, but how did you? I guess to back up, how did you come up with your module? Like your idea for your modules or your additions, I should say, and how much planning did you have into it, and how long or how much of that did you have done before you actually jumped in and started tearing down the Baxter Springs?
So after I had sent you the pictures of prototype photos and all that, I tried to get a gist of ideas for modules and stuff, using aerial photos from historical photos,
Mhm.
prototype pictures that some people were able to send me, a few other things that I was able to do for rabbit hole looking. And with the design plan, I went using a sketch pad. I kind of mocked up a 1 foot by 4 foot tabletop, what the design I wanted to look for. I didn't use, I think it's called SCARM,
Yeah.
SCARM, which is
Mhm.
a model railroad software, which if anybody ever uses it, it's absolutely free and it's well worth it too as well. Not just by
Mhm.
freehand, but also for that too.
Right.
But by designing it out, I did the tabletop first, and then I did the framework underneath as well, which I think I sent you a couple pictures
Yeah.
of those,
Mhm.
and to kind of help base it out where I wanted everything to go.
Right.
And with
And
doing that, it helped a lot in the process.
right. And those pictures I seen, they were well, great pictures that, and I the whole process actually um I personally, not that I judge anybody by what their railroad is, but as you I was happy for you once you kind of uh I guess in a sense broke out of the mold of a loop of track. 'Cause yeah, and I don't take this wrong, I'm not trying to be by no means am I trying to be, and I'm cutting down on anybody that's what they have, because sometimes that's all you have space for, or you're limited to at that time. But it's for me, I remember way back when I was stuck in in those times where that's all I could have, to where my last railroad and even this railroad, to where, okay, I'm able to break out of the mold of your typical loop of track.
The roundy round,
And
basically.
yeah, I mean, even though mine is set up to where I can run continuous run on both levels, but ultimately it's a point to point. Um, it for me anyways, it kind of feels, I don't know, it's like freeing or something like that once you break out of the barriers of your typical loop of track.
Correct. And with this one here, I can easily expand it into a point-to-point layout, which actually that's another future plan down the road that I'm actually looking at. Is I'm looking at recreating Baxter Springs itself for the KCS line,
Mhm,
the town of Lawton,
mhm.
and the KOG Junction, which is the end of the line.
And based off of how these modules have gone, I don't see it. I don't think it's that far down the line, because it seemed like every couple of weeks you were sending me, "Oh, I got this. Here's this module. Here's this module." I'm just like, "Dang, you're moving right along."
And the other thing with the modules too, as well, it helps you focus on one section at a time versus doing everything all at once, and it gets overwhelming.
Right.
And this helps with like, it doesn't even have to be like a full out layout to run. It could be like a display in its
Mhm.
own self.
Right. Now, how did you so when you got to the point of you had, uh, basically your 2 foot by 4 foot section, and you were going to add these modules on, how did you come to the point, determination, whatever, of, "Okay, this is where I'm gonna run the track to the next module." Obviously, I know you're going based off of, of prototype practices, but for somebody who may be looking at expanding their railroad, what is there any tips or anything you can give them to going to another section, module, or whatever?
So I actually had a lot of learning curves actually with learning this. I didn't plan well to accordingly, which I should say. But I made every module at least in the dead center, which is about 6 inches in, which is the halfway marker on the module, because they're only a foot wide. So I decided to go dead center.
Mhm.
Well, in realizing what I had done, I had to reevaluate my whole 2 foot by 4 foot layout. I actually went through three different styles of loops to actually connect the main loop with the rest of the modules. So
Oh,
it
okay.
was some learning practice on that one.
Mhm.
Because I had to make sure I get the turnouts just right. I had to make sure the alignment was correct. So it took a lot of measurements, trial and error, which is a big thing. But I realized, okay, so I need 6 inches from the edge of the layout in to have a connection for any kind of module. When I had that, I was able to align everything from there. But it's always good to start with a plan first and then do
Mhm.
the measurements at the same time so that way you know where you're actually going to go with it.
Okay. Now, are you in doing this? Are you following any kind of like what is it, N track or module groups?
No,
Are
I'm
you
going all
using
freehand.
okay, okay. Because I know that what are the T track? I think is
N track.
one N track,
Yeah, because
and
they have
then
a setup to where it's basically, I think it's dead. It's roughly about, it's only using Kado Unitrack though. That's the downfall.
right,
So I'm using Flex Track, and there's two different styles of N scale, which is T track, which I believe they use the Kado Unitrack, and then the N track is the one that uses the Flex Track. So they have two different styles of uh, basically plans that are NMRA standards.
sure. Did you and you didn't use? I mean, did you use them at all for any ideas or guidance, anyways, for doing modules, or did you just all said, "I'm just figuring this out myself"?
Basically just figured it out on myself. I mean, I've enjoyed seeing all the modules that people have created online, YouTube videos. And I figured I'd give it a shot and see what it's like and just kind of test run it. I just basically jumped in both feet.
Right. Well, and
So
I know, like, I've seen the module ones. A couple years ago at one of the train shows here, there was a big, I believe it was in scale. Pretty sure it was N scale. I don't remember. It was, without going back to my pictures, but a big modular layout that they had. And then at the Lincoln train show I was just at, there was a Nebraska Fremo was there, um, and their layout was pretty good size, and that was HO scale. Um, and it's really neat to do that. And I thought about that for my personal layout, but then I don't know. I'm just one of those that I want to do bigger sections than, say like 2 foot or 3 foot, I want to, but, so I guess what is the status of your new layout as we speak?
as of this afternoon, the whole entire thing's all connected right now.
And I know trains are running because you sent me a video and I didn't get back to you on it because I was getting prepped for this episode, but, that's looking great. I'm excited to see, um, YouTube videos and stuff like that on it. Yeah, it's looking great.
Yeah, it's a great accomplishment to actually finally get something up and running that's actually a modular section, which I never would figure it'd be a big accomplishment, but it pays off. I'll admit.
And I can tell from so if you're listening to this and you're curious and you want to see the progression that I see here, folks, start with episode 15, go to episode 35, then 71, and then 88, and listen to those, and then come back and listen to this one, and you will hear a difference in Benjamin from the first one. Not saying that what it was like before was he was not happy with his railroad, but just I can see and hear the excitement or just all that in you getting to this point. So I mean, I'm extremely happy for you and that you're with what you've built so far, and you've done a very very good job with it too.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I mean, the biggest accomplishment too for this was grant for living in an apartment complex too. But
Mhm.
if you decide to move or anything like that, this is a good opportunity as well too, because you can tear down in smaller sections and make it easier for moving and portability as well. And
Right.
that's actually what I was actually planning for, which is actually something that's coming up here in about 5 weeks.
What, moving?
No.
No, your train show, that's right.
Yes.
Well, tell everybody about that, so if they're listening, because this will come out next, well, those that are listening to us now, this will come out on the 8th of March of 2025, so, tell us about that train show you're gonna be at.
Yeah, so I'm going to be at the Spanish Spring Train Show in Spanish Fork, Utah. It is the 4th and 5th of April. Uh,
Mhm.
4th being from 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 9 at night, and Saturdays from 9 to 5. I'll be up there for that whole weekend for that show. It's at the uh, Spanish Fork Fairgrounds and the tennis court room, which is actually 2,400 or 24,000 square feet of a
Oh,
building.
wow.
Yeah, so they're going to have a whole bunch of vendors there, a couple modular clubs as well, some other displays as well. This is my first appearance being at a show with the layout, so
And they're gonna have Benjamin there too.
correct. And that's the thing. I'll have flyers from this podcast, which I
Mhm.
want to thank Gary for sending those out,
Yeah,
and hopefully Ray from if anybody listens to Around the Layout podcast, I'm trying to get him to send some stuff out too as well to hand out.
sure, sure. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I wish I could make it out. That's Spanish Fork, Utah. I'm trying to think. That's actually I know Salt Lake's
It's
for
south of
me 'cause
Provo.
I've been yeah. Salt Lake for me is alone about 18 hours straight. So that's probably about 22-hour drive. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make that one. But you were thinking about doing one in what around Kansas City, weren't you?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the N-Scale National Convention is in Kansas City, Overland Park, Kansas, if I remember
Yes.
correctly.
Uh-huh.
But it's in at the end of June. But I know Tony from Corn Country Rails is going to be there.
Mhm.
There's a few others that I familiar with. Ron Marsh from Ron's Trains and Things is going to be
Yep.
there. So
Yep.
there's going to be a handful of good N-Scaler guys that are going to be there. I'm
And
hoping to get myself out there. If not, I'll keep everybody updated though.
right, right. Well, that's awesome. Um, so overall, up to this point, is there any, I guess, any last words or tips or anything like that that you would like to give out to somebody that may be in your situation that you were in of like, I'm happy, but I'm not 100%. I want to add, I want to do something different. What advice would you give them?
Couple of advices I'd give would be planning would be the first of all, would be plan accordingly. Think it through first before you really decide to get a sledgehammer and start going at it.
Right.
Um, but really just kind of think it through, look at it, see where it's going to be at, where you want to expand it from. Design it first freehand or using any of the computer generated design plan systems that are out there that are free. Just kind of plan first before you jump in. It'll help you with the long run.
Right. I would agree. I would agree wholeheartedly. And also, if you, one thing I'd like to add to that as well is if you have access to anything like videos on trains.com, like their subscription or whatever, or model
Model Railroad
railroad
Academy.
videos, and not even necessarily the how-to videos, but I know maybe if you know somebody that's got the old Alan Keller railroad tour videos and stuff like that. I know on those, yeah, you see in a beautiful layout, but they also showed tips as well. But look, look at videos and stuff, and if it's a tour of a layout, maybe instead of watch it the first time, be in awe and everything, but go back and just start making notes of things that you noticed that layout owner did.
Correct. And just look for inspiration is actually the bigger key factor too. Is inspiration always helps. Any layout that you look at on video or in person, if you ever get a chance to see layouts in person, gives you also
Mhm.
that inspiration as well too.
Absolutely. And on that note, we will be back and we're going to continue our conversation with Benjamin after break. So stick around because we'll be back shortly.
And scale modelers. Are you ready for a steam locomotive that's sure to turn heads? Broadway Limited Imports is bringing you the newly tooled Santa Fe 3751 Northern, and it's packed with incredible detail. With Paragon 4 sound, DC, and DCC, these beauties feature real sounds recorded from the actual 3751. And yes, they even include working smoke, a must have feature that's rare in N-Scale. Arriving in early 2026, but don't wait. Secure yours today by ordering from your favorite dealer.
Are you tired of seeing the same old clean trains on your layout? Do you want realistic rolling rust buckets or something that looks like it's been around a few years? What about a grimy oil stained locomotive? Alan at Alan's N Scale World is just your guy. He specializes in custom weathering of any scale and has 3 different stages of weathering to choose from. He also hand paints some of the coolest N scale semis and trailers on the market. Get a hold of him today to find out what he can do for your model railroad. You can find him on Facebook at Allen's N Scale World or email him directly at allensnscaleworld@gmail.com. Allen's N Scale World, bringing you scale creations from real life situations.
Do you want a chance to get a free gift certificate to Broadway Limited Imports? Well, look in the description below. There is a link to our form to fill out. It's 1 entry per person. Thank you to Broadway Limited Imports who supports this podcast. Now, if you were interested in getting a second entry, like we said, this is 1 entry per person, but guess what? Our premium supporters who go on over to www.patreon.com/model railroad talk and become a premium supporter by April 26th, 2025 will get a second entry automatically. We'll automatically put you in the list. April 26th, 2025 is the last day that you're going to be able to put your name in the hat, and we will be doing a drawing the following week. And so get your entries in so we have as many as we can to draw from. So good luck to all my listeners, and thank you, Broadway Limited Imports. You guys are great. Guess what, folks? We are back. We still have Benjamin with us. And to continue our conversation from before, as he was saying, getting inspiration. And one of the last things he said was getting inspiration from seeing other people's layouts and stuff like that. And I know I sent Benjamin pictures of this. When I was at the Lincoln Area Train Show, I think I've stated this, I got to see an excellent layout. It was actually a master model railroader from that area. Steve, I'm not going to say his last name other than first initial T. First of all, Steve, if you ever listen to this episode or this podcast, thank you for inviting me over. It's an amazing layout. It's funny how in this world of model railroading, you see one thing, you talk to one person, no matter what they're doing, they could be completely, totally opposite of what you're doing, opposite scale. It doesn't matter. And somehow they can influence you. And to start at something small, and then we'll jump into Benjamin and I's story here. Steve, when I seen on his layout, and this goes actually with Tony Bowen from Corn Country Rails, he's on YouTube as well, so look him up, who is a master model railroader as well. I seen video from, I want to say it's been within the last couple years, Tony did this, or within the last year maybe, of him putting signals into his Corn Country Rails N scale layout. And he was using Azatrax. And now to fast forward to this time, I was at the Steve and Lincoln area, his layout, and guess what he is installing on his layout? The Azatrax as well. So it got me to reach out. I'm actually have been in contact with John over there from Azatrax, and I'm hoping to get him on an episode here soon. But I went from, I really don't care about signaling. It's not, I'm going to do it, just use it for turnout so people can look at that and know which way the turnouts, to guess what? My railroad, I'm actually before I get really any farther on track ballasting and stuff, I am going to be putting in signals eventually, hopefully really soon. Now, I was influenced by them. Now, I know, Benjamin, you have a few influences, just like I have a few influences, but they're probably from the same person for each of us, I think, or, back and forth. Why don't you jump in here?
Yeah, so I've had several influences with different layouts. A lot of them are from either YouTube channel, people like Ron Marsh from Ron's Trains and Things. His layout was really inspirational, being on all in scale double deck layout. Steve, the one that you had sent me the pictures from his layout, that was completely incredible for
Mhm.
that big of a layout.
Yeah.
Uh, it really helps get that gears working in your head to really show what you maybe I should try this, or maybe I should do this. I wonder if this will work type deal. It's better to get inspiration and ideas from others to kind of see if it'll work for your layout. If not, use something else.
Right. And I think if I remember right, and I'm not trying to credit myself or be big headed, but I think I think you said that the episode I did on doing modules, I was kind of talking about like my Casey's module to where if I wanted to take it out, that kind of got your ball rolling for yours. So, and you got that from this podcast. Well, I also got and I people, if this is your first episode that you're gonna hear it, now, if you've been a while listener, then you're gonna hear it again. I started this as the CPKC, basically it was the Iowa Eastern Railroad. It was gonna then it I decided, "Oh, I wanna go the CPKC," when they merged, and then Benjamin and I were talking, and I ended up backdating mine and to where I'm running the Gray Ghost and the white paint and Southern Belle, and mine's KCS now, and that's all thanks to Benjamin here.
Well, I appreciate the gratitude for that one. But I know I've helped you out too with I think it was a few couple models of locomotives that you said you couldn't find prototype pictures for,
Yeah.
and I've
Yep.
helped you out by sending you the actual prototype photos that I was able to find online.
Yep. Yep, and I've used those for the detailing and stuff like that. In fact, I've got so many different projects going on the railroad. I kind of bounce around. Like today, I worked on the Casey's module, putting in my street lights and getting everything hooked up, that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, that's what's great about the hobby is the fact that when you start getting in a good group of friends, and it doesn't, whether that's your division of the NMRA, or maybe you're not part of the NMRA, but maybe you don't know anybody in model railroaders and you finally find someone, or meet them through a podcast like this, or like Ray's podcast at the Around the Layout, whatever. When you develop that friendship, that fellowship stuff, it's great to be able to help each other out, even if it's from far away, pictures or whatnot.
Agreed. I mean, it's really a lot of inspiration. Especially, I'll bring back the Ray's podcast Around the Layout. It's kind of neat watching people's backstories, but also get inspiration from other people's roads that's inspired them as well too.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it helps a lot with anybody's model railroad by getting that inspiration to kind of help get those gears turning, but also get you kind of a jump start a little bit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, and going back to like my story with uh, I never, I wanted signal heads just because that's what the prototype has, but never necessarily operating, because to be honest with you, I don't know that I'll ever operate with them at all. I shouldn't, I don't know. I never said I would, and I said, I don't know. But now I'm to the point, being inspired from seeing this Azatrack brand, and we'll get into that. I'll get into that another episode, hopefully with John from Azatrax. But um, you know, eh, you see it out there, and it, now I'm to the point. Well, I at least want operating signals, actual operating signals on my railroad, even if it's just for the coolness factor. Um, and that's what's nice, is to being able to be inspired by, sometimes it's just that one thing. And sometimes it takes, seeing KCS, Gray Ghost, or white paint scheme running around an N scale layout several times to change you a little bit, bring back your, what you liked. Because I know, like, as far as that goes, I know originally I was always, I guess, my biggest that I can remember, Santa Fe and the Burlington Northern were always, Santa Fe was my first train set that I got as a kid, and for me anyways, and so I always liked the Santa Fe. I liked the war bonnets. But then where I grew up in Des Moines, there was a lot of Burlington Northern, the green Burlington Northern, so I liked the Burlington Northern. Um, and then I've modeled both of those before in the past. I wanted to do something different. Well, what do I see? CPKC, Canadian Pacific around here. But then, chatting with you and seeing what you have, it like, well, I do remember as a kid seeing Kansas City Southern locomotives and cars roll through Des Moines and stuff like that once in a great while, as added power. And that it's kind of like my third at the time was my third love of railroad.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of agree with you. I mean, my first train set was the Chattanooga Choo Choo
Mm,
um, when I was
mhm,
about 8 years old, but I started researching more on the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis Railroad, which is what the locomotive was based on. So I was going to try going prototype on that real quick. Started looking at stuff and all that when I was younger, and then that just kind of went away. And just in my area, I have BNSF and UP here in Phoenix, but it used to be the Santa Fe and Southern Pacific routes that used to go through Phoenix. But I got tired of it because everybody always wanted a Santa Fe or wanted SP Railroad out here. So, and finding
right.
more family history with the KCS was in the family history line. I kind of jumped over to the KCS, but watching all their paint schemes going from the Freight Southern Belle with three different paint schemes of the Southern Belle, and then went to the Doremus Red paint, which was in the 60s, and then going in the 70s became the Ghost, and then you had your gray, and then now it's at the
Mhm.
Southern Belle again.
Yep. Well, it was at the Southern Belle. Now it's uh, no, it's CPKC, which I don't know if the way they did this, but the new paint scheme the CPKC has, the colors there kind of resemble. It's like when I look at the new locomotives, I do kind of see a splash of the new age Southern Belle.
Yeah, I can kind of see
Yeah.
that too. I mean, it kind of has a mixture of both between CP's paint schemes plus also the KCS mixed into the two together.
Take them or leave them. I know there's people I've talked to that I hate the Kansas City or not Kansas City, the CP, and now especially now the CPKC. I take it or leave it, whether you like them or hate them. Their new paint scheme does stand out, and my opinion, they did an excellent job with it.
Now, to give a little history, the KCS is actually, if it hadn't merged, would be the second oldest Class 1 in the U.S.
Next to
Union
UP,
Pacific. Yep.
yeah. Well, and some would argue BNSF, but BNSF is merged, so
Since 90, was it 95, 94, 95?
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So technically, KCS has still kind of got that tie on the second place.
Yep, yep, and really, the CPKC now is a young blood again because of the merger.
Correct.
So really, the what originals do we have out there now? Still UP.
UP is basically the last one that's still original that is the one of the biggest Class 1s right now because it bought out a whole bunch of other ones.
Yeah, and it hasn't merged at all. So yeah, yeah, it's weird when you think about it. Yeah, wow. Yeah, there's no because at Norfolk Southern was
That
Norfolk and
was the
Western Southern SP.
Well, no, they actually
Uh,
started with the Southern and they merged with, I
oh
think it
yeah,
was a
yeah,
few other ones. Yeah, and then Conrail started after Penn Central. Penn Central was New York
yeah.
Central and Pennsy. And then you had BNSF, which is Burlington Northern and Santa Fe, which actually Burlington Northern was another merger itself prior to that, too, as well.
Right, right.
So if you look
Yeah,
about it, from the 60s on was all nothing but mergers for about almost 30 years.
right. And it's still going on today too. Uh, and I think really there's only, and if you get down to what class two, well, I'm not sure. I guess this is something I should research, but like the Iowa Interstate, I don't know if they're considered a class one or a class two. All right, we are back. We had a little technical glitch. Don't know if it was Benjamin or me or both of us. Who knows? But Um, outside of that glitch, while that glitch was being fixed, we looked it up, and Iowa Interstate is technically a Class 2 railroad. So if you didn't know that, it's a Class 2. But what I was going to say is there's some of them smaller ones have been gobbled up, but you get ones like the Iowa Interstate. They're still original from the day that they started. The Crandick, Cedar Rapids, and Iowa City, Crandick, they are too. The only one that really I know got bought up by the Canadian National, I believe it was Canadian National, is the Iowa Northern Railroad.
Yeah, they
Um,
just recently, if you look at their paint scheme, it's actually got the Canadian Nash, no, Canadian Pacific. I'm sorry, it's got the old Canadian Pacific with that gray, the older
oh
style
yeah.
CP. Yeah, it was actually a CP purchase if I remember correctly.
Oh okay.
Because
Okay.
they got the same logo as a CP locomotive. It's just it's labeled for the Iowa Northern
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because Iowa Northern's their paint scheme did resemble the old what do they
CP.
call it? Executive scheme or whatever the CP called it.
I
Yeah,
think it was like something like in the '60s. I think that's what that scheme was.
right. But during this technical glitch, I received my package, and it's from Alan's N Scale World. And I've said this before, he had the cars. He asked me to bring over some HO scale cars, which I did. And while I was there, I purchased some cars, and he used some of them in his um, clinic that he did. And he said he would finish them up and do the other ones and send them back to me. And I received them today, and I just opened it up and looked at it for the first time in front of the camera with Benjamin here. Um, I guess let's start, Benjamin. What do you think so far with the two cars I showed you?
With the two cars, it's a phenomenal job. I mean, if you look at it, it's got the detail, the rust spots with the rust streaking down. You showed
Mm-hmm.
me the Rock Island one that really looked like a good faded out car.
Yep.
The green one, you could tell where there's a few rust spots here and there, but it looks almost like what you would see in the prototype world.
Right. And had I not had you on the other end here waiting on me, I would have opened up the rest of them because I have a bulkhead flat car and oh, I'm trying to remember what other car I gave him. Another, I don't think it was a box car. Anyways, whatever. Um, but yeah, excellent job. And so Alan's Ensco World, which you heard in the ad, check him out. Excellent work he's doing over there. He's one of the small guys in a big world of model railroading, but definitely well worth your time to reach out to him. Now, also, Benjamin was telling me before we jumped on here something about the train show he's going to in the group about the layout that was donated to them.
Yeah, so there was a hobby store called the Hobby Depot. No, the Hobby Shop in they're located in Orem, Utah, but they just recently got a donated layout, and it's being created into a Harry Potter themed with the Hogwarts Express and all that NHO stuff that they're going to take at the show too as well, which I thought was kind of interesting.
That is, that is. Like we were talking, I personally am not into that Harry Potter stuff, but on the flip side, I think that would be really cool to see just because most railroads you see are traditional. They're either desert, mountain, city, whatever. How often do you really see one that is mythical?
Correct, and it'd be kind of interesting, but I think they're trying to aim it towards the kids at the shows. What they're trying to do.
Oh, and very well so. I mean, that's the best way, get the kids involved and hopefully the parents get involved as well. To keep nourishing that love of trains and stuff. Now you were telling me that that same group does another kind of thing regarding pizza
Yes,
boxes.
yeah. So the Ophir, Tintic, and Western Model Railroad Club, which is actually the one that hosts the whole show altogether.
Mhm.
Um, if you look at their website, I'll make sure I send a link out to Gary to put on there for their
Yep.
website. But they do a pizza box style layout for kids. It's a registration form, but it helps you get promoted. They'll give you the supplies and tools you need to get started on a pizza style layout. It's only like the size of a pizza box, basically. and it
Right.
gives you everything, and it's promoting the hobby with just not just the kids but adults too. And they put a few of them out on display to show you what you can do in just very
Right.
limited space.
Right. Yeah, and that's excellent, that they do stuff like that because people say the hobby's dying, and it's not.
No.
I wholeheartedly disagree. If anything, it's growing. I just feel that people don't talk about it as much as they did. I mean, I know I'm older than you, Benjamin. I don't know
Hmm.
by how much, but let's put it this way. This year I is my last year before I hit the big 50. Let's put it that way. So, um, but, but, like, back in my day, it wasn't nothing to go to I remember the local train shop with my dad, and for me to see, a parent there with a kid my age, a little bit older, whatever, and nowadays, I think a lot of it has to do with there's so much online stuff that
Yeah,
it's
I
not
agree
that
with that 100% as well.
there's not that hands-on, uh, if physically there to see stuff as there used to be, and
Yeah,
that's
I
where these
mean,
trains. Go ahead.
and that's the thing with me. I mean, I was born in '92, so growing up, it was one of my last generations. I want to say that we really got to see at a train show. You got to see actual layouts and stuff like that. It was kind of neat to see the hands-on experience before really everything was online. Like you said, it's more
Yeah.
online based now. It's no longer a go to your local hobby shop and look at what they have for sale. No, it's all online mostly now.
Right, and okay, keeping up with technology, that's got its advantages, but on the flip side, it takes away from the one-on-one, what do you call it, fellowship,
Yeah, with
you
the
know,
one-on-one deal.
and unless you're in a group of some kind, even online, I mean, like us, you and I are in constant contact throughout the week, just like I
Yeah.
am with Eric, and it's one of those things that we've developed friendships, and unfortunately, like, you and I are a little farther away than Eric and I are, otherwise we would have probably already hung out, a few
Oh
times,
yeah.
but but, but no, I mean, that's the biggest thing. The hobby's not dying, so if anybody that's trying to say that the hobby's dying, it's not. Maybe certain groups and organizations in the hobby are, but that isn't necessarily, um a reflection of the hobby, and I'm not cutting down, I'm not thinking or even targeting any specific organization. I have none in my mind. I'm just saying though that falls back on that organization, whether it be a model railroad club or a group or something, and but generally speaking, no, the hobby's not dying. It's an excellent hobby. In fact, there's a lot of people that I talk to, younger people and older people that are, when they hear, oh, you got a what they call a train setup or train set, it's like, well, this is a little different than a train set, and like yours, it's a little different than a train set,
And
but to
that's
get
the
back,
same thing with me at work too, as well. A lot of the guys will say, "Oh, you're the train guy," this, that. And
yeah,
so everybody kind of knows it. It's not a dying hobby, but some of them actually bring back memories. Yeah, well, I remember my dad's train set with the
yeah.
Lionel around the tree, and it kind of it brings a good warming heart that the hobby never died. It's always around somewhere.
Yep, and it always will be. And until the day there are no more railroads out there, and then several long, long years after that, and they'll always be the railroad. So
Oh
there'll
yeah.
always be the fascination with it. But to get back to what we're talking about the train shows and promoting it for the kids, though, but it's great. Yeah, you've got the hobby shops and you got the small retailers at these train shows, which good for them. Not cutting them down by no means, but it's people like you, Benjamin. It's people that are in the groups as well that are bringing their module layouts, and you bringing yours, just to show is what's sparking interest in the young and old alike who always wanted to do one. Maybe they're same age as I am, but they've always wanted to do one. They had one when they were a kid, but now, you know, being able to see something like maybe what you're doing will spark that interest.
Yeah, and I mean, with mine the way I have it, I can actually take these three modules down and just run the 2 foot by 4 by itself.
Right.
that's the main reason why I'm promoting it, is like you don't always have to have these to create a big layout. You can always have the little 2 foot by 4 foot or
Mhm.
4 foot by 8 foot layout to be happy, or you could just do a module by itself and be happy learning your skills and techniques.
Right. And I know we've talked about this before in other episodes, but as time, skills, money, whatever come about, you can always add on and learn from your mistakes. Okay, if you're going to add a second module down the road, well, you know, maybe I should have laid my track at this point, not that point, or whatever, but you live and learn.
Yeah, you do, and this hobby is always a growing hobby. It's not going to die.
Oh yeah.
It's always going to grow.
Yep. Yep. And as long as you have people, like you and I back and forth of, okay, um, I don't know at this point, is it inspiring or is it like, okay, what can I do next to push him to, kind of
Well,
thing?
and that's
Well, it's
and that's the I talked to Eric too recently, and I've sent him a few photos and stuff, and it's inspired him a little bit because of his GP60. Because he says he was kind of getting burned out on it a little bit, so I figured send him some pictures to kind of get inspired type deal. And
yep.
it's kind of neat when you have that group of friends where you can inspire one another to get together and just kind of show stuff.
Inspire a little nudge,
Nudge.
knuckle. And you say that because, oh, was it yesterday or it was either yesterday or the day before? Eric, I think it was yesterday. Eric, he had the day off. He was out riding. He sent me pictures. He went down to Spring Creek model trains and he sent me this picture because him and I, so the GP60 you're talking about, uh, I don't know, in the last probably 8 months, probably roughly about 8 months ago, he had also brought up that he would like to start thinking about building his own ride on car to pull right behind the locomotive. And he's got cars that he can pull behind, but not really that you can ride on. And what he's wanting to do is like a 48-foot well car. And so of course, the mechanic builder and me, I'm already thinking, okay, well, what angle, what size steel, what am I going to use tube? Am I going to use angle, whatever. And I've already got mentally ideas and, a list of, okay, well, we're going to need this, this, and this. So yesterday, pretty sure it was yesterday, I'm at work. I get a picture from Eric, or he's messaging me, and then he sends me a picture of this G scale, or I'm sorry, O scale well car that he found there. And of course, he's on his motorcycle, and I'm like, all right, well, I've seen his motorcycle. He has bags and stuff, and you're probably thinking, what does a motorcycle have to do with model trains? But here we go. So he's like, well, maybe I think I'm going to hold off on this because I've got enough. I need to finish up my GP60, blah blah blah. And I said, well, but when you get burnt out, when you need to take a break from that, you can start getting measurements for me off of that O scale well car that you're probably going to purchase. And so, long story short, he's like, well, he took a picture of his motorcycle and he goes, well, they let me bring it outside to make sure it fit in my bag on my motorcycle. And I talked to him afterwards. He goes, yeah, you kind of pushed me to purchase it. I said, did I push you or did I just kind of twist your finger or your arm a little bit and you just went the rest of the way, But
Yeah, because
but it's
he has a goal right now that, from what he texted me, he wants to get that GP60 done by the end of the year.
yeah. And he's real close at it. I know with him, and I'm gonna have him on here hopefully here soon, and we're gonna talk about it again. But I'm waiting on him to send me some templates I need him to make, so I can fine tune some of the 3D print stuff I'm doing for him. But yeah, what it gets back to is this back and forth, like you and I with the KCS and whatever, and with me and him, me giving him crap about, hey, little nudge, maybe you should go ahead and get that car so we can start planning on that. Cause like I told him, I said, once you get your GP60 up, you're going to want to run it, or once it's ready, why not have your own ride on car behind it ready to go, or close to when it's time.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's what's fun about this hobby is being able to do that and just having conversations about trains and stuff like you and I have had about the KCS. And when I've been looking for prototype pictures of certain locomotives for super detailing or just whatever, it's That's what's great about this hobby, and I know we've been getting a lot of new listeners here for the podcast, and the last couple weeks, I've been getting several new people, or I should say emails from people I haven't heard from in the hobby, and making good contacts with people. So that really excites me and helps me out, and being able to have returning friends on the podcast like you is great. So yeah. Um, any other thing you want to talk about as far as your railroad or anything?
No, the only thing I could think of would be it's kind of neat just having just these chit chats and stuff like that once in a while, and just
Mhm.
not just talk about trains, but just getting that inspiration from one another. It really helps keep that fire going. It really does.
It does. Yeah, I know, and I've had that. I know I kinda told Eric this after the train show. I said, because the weekend after that, the girlfriend was gone. She was visiting her daughter, so I had the house to myself. I had to work that Saturday, but outside of that, it was all mine. I told him, I said, "For, like, a week or 2 after that, I'm working on my own stuff. A, I need to, but B, it's like you can only have so much inspiration coming in before you start taking that and letting it work, come out through your hands working on the railroad."
So is that kind of when I was kind of going all out last week, sending you almost every other night, just all those pictures of updates?
Probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
No,
So,
I'm kind of glad though I got this last accomplishment done today though.
yeah. And when you sent me that I was truly deep down happy for you to see it running, because I know I can just tell this is what you were actually truly wanting up to this point, you know? Like
Yeah.
I said, not saying before you were unhappy, but you can tell when you're talking to somebody and they're building a layout, and it's like they're happy, but you can just sense that little bit of not 100%. And now I feel like I'm sensing, if not 100%, it's 99.9999%.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I mean, granted, the layout will eventually recreate the entire, well, not the entire, but portions of the layout into one big branch, but that will be
Right.
down the road when it comes time.
Right. I know I hope someday I can get to see this, layout of yours out. I know I can see it. You send me pictures and stuff like that, but I mean, I wanna see it firsthand, so we're definitely gonna have to figure out a way for that. Um, so before we leave, I would like to also say, reach out to Scott's Trains. Um, Great guy to buy stuff from. I think you've reached out to him as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I've reached out to him. I guess it was in regards to those KCS cabooses I was talking about. And he didn't have any on hand, but he said if he does, he'll let me know.
Yep. He's very good at that. In fact, I have another locomotive that he sent me a picture of and a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, really? I don't need any more locomotives right now, but I have one on the way, another one. So, no, it's not KCS. It's actually a Santa Fe War Bonnet C44-9, and I'm like, love the War Bonnet. I know don't mix, but I don't care. It's my railroad, right? But if you wanna get a hold of Scott, from Scott's Trains, great guy, great seller, trusted seller. He makes sure his stuff is good to go when it gets to you, and if you have any issues, you just reach out to him, he'll take care of you. Reach out to him, Scott Love, SCOTTLOVE 57 at gmail.com, or, he does have a Facebook group. It's the Online Model Train Show. Go check it out. It is a group, so you will have to ask to join it. Um, but he is one of the administrators or whatever in there, and he's always listening to stuff. So if you're on Facebook, check him out. He is in my opinion, a primetime A+ seller. So
I think I have to
before
start joining that group now too, because I don't know if I'm part of that group yet.
when we get off here, I'll check and see, and if not, I'll invite you to it.
All right, sounds good.
Um, Before we leave here, and I know if you've been listening for a while, I have this book from 400 plus thrilling and unbelievable train facts for enthusiasts. So this one, Benjamin, since now you don't have to wait to hear this one, you're actually going to hear this one as we record it. This one comes from the chapter "The Future of Trains: Trends and Innovations." Hyperloop transportation. Hyperloop technology promises to revolutionize rail transportation with near supersonic speeds, utilizing low pressure tubes to propel passenger pods at speeds exceeding 700 mile per hour, drastically reducing travel times between cities. So Hyperloop transportation, that's something future trains and trends and innovations chapter of the 400 plus thrilling and unbelievable train facts for enthusiasts, written by Nathan Ward. So, very good book I got for Christmas. So, anyways, on that note, Benjamin, is there anything that you would like to add before we close this out?
No, I think we pretty much covered what we were going to talk about on this episode.
All right. Well, then, in that case, remember, go to our website, www.modelrailroadtalk.com, newly updated. You can always check out, and we'll be updating it. I'll be updating the website as far as my railroad, which is the Kansas City Southern, Iowa Eastern Division, and also Benjamin's Railroad, which is on there, Kansas City Southern, Baxter Springs, Lawton branch. If you want to check that out. Plus, always go check out our YouTube channel along with Benjamin's YouTube channel. And you can find the links on our webpage, www.modelrailroadtalk.com, for those. You can also reach out to us, modelrailroadtalk@gmail.com. And as we always say, in the meantime, keep your train on the tracks.